This is a Sitting Ringside with David Penzer. Quick Fix on Radio Influence.
Ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Taskmaster Booker Man, Devil himself, Kevin Sullivan, welcome to Sitting Ringside. Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara being brought up. Refresh my memory, were you still the Booker when they were hired to be the head writers?
No, I was told, I got a phone call by J.J. Dillon. I'll never forget. Bill Bush had become boss. J.J. called me.
He was just to give the fans a background who may not know, he was an accountant with the company, great guy, great money guy, and the nicest guy in the world, but not exact. Yeah. And he would self-admit even back then that he wasn't the guy to run a company, but he was basically put in charge to get the finances under control, correct?
Right, and he was a wonderful human being.
Nicest guy in the world.
JJ calls me and said, listen, can I talk to you about something? I said, yeah. He said, listen, Ferrara and Russo became available, and we hired them. I said, fine. That's great. Great. I said, but what does that mean for me? He said, we're going to still pay you, and we're going to extend your contract. I said, that's fine. Let him do it. And after about 2 weeks, JJ said to me, would you mind coming to these meetings?
So you had a 2-week reprieve. It's not even enough to not even enough to sleep the amount of hours you probably needed to sleep to catch up.
Yeah, he said, would you mind coming? I said, JJ, I just want to do a little fishing down the Keys. I said, isn't that important? He said, yeah, I want you to come. And JJ, he was my direct boss. I said, okay, I'll come. And I said, what do you want? He said, I just want you to watch the show. I said, do you want to go to the production meeting? He said, yeah, it'll look funny if you don't. So I go to the production meeting. And then I go and watch the show. And I go and see him the next day at TBS. And he said, what do you think? I said, this is a pilot for a series called Rope Opera. This can't be wrestling. And I said, do you remember the Italian group of guys that threw meatballs on Booker T and Stevie Ray?
Actually, no.
I said, you're going to get an Italian Defamation League.
Oh, yes.
And I think I called. They called. You couldn't do that kind of stuff. And the thing about burying Rick in the desert, how Freudian is that? Bury him alive, right?
Right.
I mean, it was so badly done. And, one of the things I've read about history, it was about when Hitler was taking over, Goebbels could have stopped them, but he let it go. And sometimes not making any action is worse. Because I had this thing with my partner, and he said, well, Ed, it could have been worse if Ed didn't keep him in check. And I said, how could it be any worse? Viagra on a pole match? Think about that. Viagra on a pole match. And then he said this thing about Ginger. Well, they're not pushing him as a champion the way they should be. This guy changed the belt 4 times in 2 hours, made an actor the world heavyweight champion, and made himself the world heavyweight champion.
I will say, in defense of David Arquette, he did buy the entire bar that night. So I give him. I thought that was very classy, and I appreciated that move.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what else is classy about him. Do you know that they paid him quite a bit? You know that, right?
Yeah, and he gave it all to charity, if I remember correctly.
He gave it to Brian Pillman's family.
Oh, I did. I knew it was a charity. I didn't realize that one.
Sitting Ringside with David Penzer can be found on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Google Play, and RadioInfluence.com.